I feel like we need to figure out a way to try to figure out a different way to help, addiction in America, because it's not just America where it's a problem, but I feel like we have higher numbers than maybe some other,
Have
or
you?
maybe the luxury of not being a third world country, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a really it's an incredibly complex issue in my opinion, and it is something that I have looked into a lot because of some of my personal experiences. But I do feel like the brain chemistry angle is a little bit overplayed. I do think that biology does play a role, but I also think that the way our culture just the way that we address it in general is one of the bigger problems. Like we don't ask people why they're distressed, what's been happening in their life. It's just that
Hmm.
they always want to relate it to the chemicals, they don't ask them about their story.
Hmm.
Um, and basically his argument is that the old story is that depression is a disease and antidepressants are a cure, and that depression is a malfunction of the brain. But what he's saying is that we've been systemically misinformed about what depression and anxiety really are, and that they're not really they're not imaginary, but they're not a weakness either, and it's not really due to a malfunctioning brain. He says that they're a consequence of our society's lifestyle, and
Yeah, I can see that.
he gives like a bunch of points, but I do want to try to like sum it up as quickly as possible because I don't want to like read this shit. But basically what he's saying is stop asking what is wrong with people and start asking what happened to you.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Well,
and
you see that too, right? Whenever, like, a lot of people, you could look at it, alcoholism, you could look at it coke, you could look at it meth, heroin. There's a number of pain pills, Oxycontin, and most of the time, it's typically people who it it either I think a lot of it, some of it does start in high school, or you're experimenting and things, but then I think other times, like as an adult, I think you're more likely to revert back to some sort of something to try to escape your problems or pain, right? You're trying to escape pain. And it's not physical pain, it's mental pain, it's emotions,
psychological, yes. So yes, this is the line I was looking for. He says you are not a machine with broken parts, you are a human being with unmet psychological needs.
Yep.
That's hitting the nail on the head right there. That's what I
Yeah,
was
I would agree with that, because I mean, I think if you look at it, a lot of times you see it as and it and I wouldn't say it's, everyone, but I'd say, a lot of the people, it's, something happens, they make a mistake, right? They get in trouble, their kids get taken away. So then they're in pain because they don't get to see their kids. And then that creates guilt. And, and I think too, counseling and things like that. We talked about this, but I'm a big firm believer in, counseling, and not necessarily like psychiatrists are great too. They'll pump you full of drugs. You say, hey, I'm depressed, they give you an antidepressant. And so there are some people who genuinely need that. And I'm not saying that there aren't, but I think there's a lot of people in the world that, we've we've groomed our society to think that, oh, your back hurts, you should take a pill for that.
Well,
That'll
in
make
that,
you
but
feel better.
another thing to go, I don't mean to interrupt you, but as far as the pharmaceutical, I think, and I agree with him on this point too. He says that yeah, and oftentimes that is a necessary short-term solution. The problem is there's never a plan. When you first get prescribed that pill, the doctor is not also giving you a plan of this is how long you're going to take it, this is the dosage, and this is when we're going to get off it.
Or
There's no
hey, you need to
plan to
go to
get off it.
physical therapy for this long, for pain pills, or you need to go to counseling for
Right.
mental distress, right? Or whatever it is. There's no structure, I
Right.
guess.
It's just the chemical. It's just,
It's just,
and there
hey.
is there is that is real. I don't want to
Mhm.
discount that completely. That is a real factor, but it's being overplayed in comparison to the social and psychological aspect of what happens in an addict's brain, basically.
Well, I think it goes to instant gratification too, right? So we live in a
Well, that's
society.
bonding. I think the gratification thing is bonding. I think what drug, whether it's alcohol, even the ones that are like very considered mild or socially acceptable, like caffeine or alcohol or even cannabis at this point, I would say is relatively socially acceptable. But all of them, I feel like what that is it's that chemical, the chemical part of it, the chemical bond is basically what that is doing is replacing the bonds that we don't have anymore in society because we don't live in tribes anymore. And
Right.
we're the most individualistic culture to ever live in America specifically.
Yeah, no, I definitely could see that. I mean, I think, I think, and, I'm sure we'll get to this too. We talked about relationships, but I think, a lot of people, even if whether you're married or not, or whether you're domestic partnership or you've been together for 20 years, I do think that, most people in society, you're looking for acceptance, you're looking for community, you're looking for that bond with other
All of the
people.
things that we've lost since we exited tribes and tribal
Right,
lifestyle.
exactly. So you're looking for, likeness and acceptance and things, and you see it in children, you see it in teenagers, and we magically think that goes away when you become an adult and you become a slave to your job and you start working, 50, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and you want to get that paycheck. And then, I don't know if your parents ever told you this as a kid, but when I was a kid, it was, you get to drink when you turn 21 because
Shit, my parents had me drinking when I was 14, and the reason
well,
was they
well,
didn't want me
mine
out
was
and about
well,
drinking.
yeah, mine was you earned it because you have to work all day and your life becomes miserable when you're an adult. Don't rush it, right? So like it was like this thing where like you get to earn, the physical substance escape from the world. You get to earn that when you become an adult, because life is shitty and miserable and whatever it is, right? It becomes all these other things happen in your life, and there's all these things that occur, and people, again, you're looking for acceptance and love and companionship and togetherness. And whether, I think no one has that there. I wouldn't say no one, but I would say there are very few career paths and companies that are really, preaching for togetherness. It's more of,
There's plenty that preach it. How many
oh well,
practice
they
it?
preach it, right? Or it's like my favorite was my coworkers and I joked about this, like, oh, we're a family
Yeah.
business.
Oh my goodness, that's like a
Red flag,
famous
red
one.
flag, red flag, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're family, but there's so much toxic shit that goes on where there's
Yeah. What
favoritisms.
kind of family are we talking about here?
Right. Like I'm not your family. And it goes to show, like I went and gave a notice and they
The
had
wild and wonderful whites of West Virginia, maybe.
yeah, like I had, like I gave the example, like I worked for a company, I helped them build their business from, 2 stores to almost 60 in 3 years. And, I told them I was unhappy for about a year. And then I gave my notice after 60 days of giving them time to find someone new. They let me go within 48 hours. And it's like, oh, but we're a family business, right? But I'm gonna make sure you don't have that health insurance the next month. I'm gonna make sure you don't get that next paycheck like you thought you were, right? It's just like little things like that where, I think, we really look at society, and I do think, we can talk about social media and things like that. We didn't talk about it before, but I think we've gone into this.
Well,
We're
social
looking.
media is a drug and an addiction, so I think that's a good
Oh yeah.
segue into
Well,
anything else that you want
I
to talk
agree.
about.
Well, because people, okay, great. You may not be drinking every night, but you're spending 7 hours on your phone. And can you actually go out to dinner and have a conversation with the people at your dinner table, or are you all on your phone looking at what everyone else is doing? And I even see it in, my mom, right? So my mom's 75, and my mom, I will go visit her, and she's gotten to the point where my mom is addicted. My mom has an alcohol addiction, so it just ties
As
into
yeah,
all of it.
as does the majority of adults in America.
Right. And so it's one of those things where, but I go home to visit her and she doesn't have anything to talk about. All she wants to talk about is hey, did you see on Facebook? And she's on her phone. I'm literally sitting in the room with her, and she's so busy on her phone looking at Facebook, asking me, did I see this about my cousin? Or did I see this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm also on Facebook. I also can see their life events, like if
Yeah.
you like, we can talk about that, but not, you're sitting in a room with another human being and they're more focused, like they don't know how to be present in the relationship or in the, in person anymore.